My brother walked into my new house and said, "You think you're better than us now?" So I looked him in the eye and replied, "No, just finally proved you wrong for saying I'd achieve nothing." I was 27 when I bought my first house, not rented, bought fully mine. No roommates, no parents co-signing the loan, no lucky inheritance, just years of grinding, saving, and working jobs most of my relatives thought were beneath them. I know that sounds early to be a homeowner, but I've been busting my back since I was 16, picking up freelance coding gigs online, delivering food in all kinds of weather, and living like a monk through college while my friends partied. I didn't do it for recognition. I just wanted to feel secure, to wake up in a place that was mine, where I didn't have to tiptoe around anyone or ask permission to hang a painting. Still, when I finally signed those papers and held that single silver key in my palm, the first thing I wanted to do wasn't pop champagne or post about it online. I just wanted to share it with my family. Maybe it was naive of me. Maybe some part of me still thought they'd be proud. I grew up in a family where success was always tangled in resentment. My older brother Kyle was the golden child star athlete, always popular, always loud, always just a little too good at twisting a conversation to make it about him. My younger sister Jenna was the baby, and despite doing barely anything productive post-high school, she was coddled like she was made of glass. I was the quiet middle kid, the one who got straight A's, cooked dinner when mom had a long shift, and stayed out of everyone's way. Somehow that made me invisible, or worse, trying too hard. My parents weren't cruel, not in the way some horror stories on Reddit go, but they were the kind of people who would call you selfish for doing something without involving them, and then completely ignore you when you tried to include them. Growing up in that weird limbo between being needed and being dismissed had built up a quiet storm in me over the years, but I kept it down like always. Kept my head down, worked, saved, planned. I myself, that one day when I made it, they'd finally see me. Not the quiet one, not the background character in our family drama, but me, someone they could be proud of. So when I moved in, the walls still echoing with fresh paint and the floors smelling like new wood, I was buzzing with excitement. I spent the entire weekend setting everything up. I didn't have much furniture yet, just the basics, but every item in that house had been chosen by me, paid for with my money. The sunlight streamed through the living room windows just right. The backyard was small, but peaceful. There was even a little fireplace, something I dreamed of as a kid during cold winters in our cramped apartment. I snapped a few pictures. Nothing flashy, just the front porch, the empty living room, the little coffee table I'd built myself. I sent the pictures to the family group chat. The message was simple. "Hey everyone, just moved into my first house. Would love for you all to come by this weekend and see it. I'll cook. Let me know what works for you." I hit send and stared at the screen, expecting at least a congrats or a thumbs up emoji from someone. Nothing. I checked again an hour later. Still nothing. No little scene marks, no double checks. I figured maybe they were busy. Cal had kids, Jenna was always floating between part-time jobs, and mom had weird rotating shifts. So I waited. That evening I sent a follow-up just in case the message got buried. Still nothing. Then came the days of silence. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Not a single text call or even a stray emoji from anyone. I started to wonder if something had happened. A family emergency? A hospital visit. I even considered calling Cal just to check in, but then I saw he'd posted a picture that morning, and at a barbecue with Jenna, their kids playing in the background. Everyone smiling like they were in a commercial. That's when something started to sink in. It wasn't that they were busy, they were ignoring me. Now look, I've been left out before a lot, actually. I'd gotten used to being the last one told about birthdays, about family dinners that I must have missed the invite for. But this felt different. I hadn't asked for much. I just wanted to share something I was proud of. I didn't expect a parade or champagne, just maybe a hug, a smile, a "You did good, Liam." Monday came around. I went to work. I came home. The house felt a little colder than usual. Maybe because it was still empty. Maybe because I was. Then out of nowhere, ding, my phone buzzed. I picked it up already, hoping maybe someone had come to their senses. Maybe mom had finally replied with, "Sorry, sweetie. We've been busy. We'd love to come next weekend." But no, it was Kyle. And it just said, "You think you're better than us now." That's when something shifted in me. I stared at that message for a long time. It was like the culmination of every little jab and passive-aggressive comment I'd absorbed growing up suddenly bubbled to the surface. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was hurt, confused, a little bit hollow. I typed back, "What?" No response. I went back to the group chat and saw that sometime in the last hour, Kyle had finally read the message. So had mom and Jenna. Still, no one else replied. I sat on my new couch in my new house in the quiet and just sat wondering how a simple invitation could turn into some unspoken accusation. Wondering why me wanting to share something had triggered whatever insecurity had been festering in my brother's head. I didn't know it then, but that text was just the beginning. The silence that was just the first slap in the face. What followed would unravel every fragile thread I had left tying me to that family. And eventually, it would lead to a moment I never thought I'd be capable of cutting them out, but not yet. First, I had to see just how far they were willing to go. I didn't respond to Kyle's message right away. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I had too much. 1,000 things rushed to the surface. Memories, frustrations, old wounds. I thought I'd buried years ago. I kept rereading his words like they were in some foreign language I couldn't decipher. You think you're better than us now? No follow-up, no explanation, just that. I told myself maybe he was joking. A bad joke, sure, but maybe he was trying to be funny. Maybe it came out wrong. I gave it a few hours waiting for a LOL or a JK or anything to suggest he wasn't being serious. But the hours passed and nothing came. So I did what I always do. I took the high road. I messaged him back again. Hey, not trying to make anyone feel bad. Just wanted to share something I worked really hard for. That's all. Read. No reply. That week, I didn't hear a single word from anyone in my family. Not Mom, not Jenna, not even a stray like from Dad who never said much but would usually throw a thumbs up on anything remotely positive. They just went silent. And yet I'd see them online posting pictures, tagging each other in memes, sharing clips from movies we all used to watch as kids. At first I thought maybe they were going through something I didn't know about. Maybe it wasn't about me, but deep down I knew better. This wasn't new. It was just a more obvious version of the pattern I'd grown up with. Whenever I did something that made me proud, they pulled away. Like pride in their eyes was arrogance. Like any attempt at self-improvement was a slap in their face. When I got a scholarship in high school, Mom barely looked up from her phone. When I got into my university's honors program, Kyle said, "Cool, I guess that means you'll be broke and smart." And when I graduated early, Jenna rolled her eyes and muttered, "Some people have too much time on their hands." This was just more of the same. Only now I had a house, a tangible symbol that I'd pulled ahead in life, and they hated it. The breaking point didn't come all at once. It was a slow drip of small betrayals, each one sharper than the last. The next week, I found out Jenna had thrown a birthday party for her boyfriend at my favorite restaurant, the one I'd taken her to for her 20th birthday when she was going through a breakup. I only found out because one of her friends tagged her in a picture. The whole family was there. Kyle, Mom, even Dad, who rarely left the house unless there was a family thing. But me not invited? Not even mentioned. I stared at that photo for longer than I care to admit. Everyone was laughing, arms draped over each other, drinks raised in a toast. My seat figuratively and literally was empty. That was the moment it shifted from silence to deliberate exclusion. I decided to call Mom. I told myself I just wanted answers, closure, maybe an apology, though I should have known better. She picked up on the third ring. "Liam," she said, her tone already flat. "Hey Mom, can we talk?" She sighed. "I'm really busy right now, honey. I just need a minute." Silence. Then a tight fine. I saw the pictures from Jenna's birthday. Everyone looked happy. Another pause. "Yeah, it was nice. I didn't get invited." Her voice sharpened. "Well, I figured you were too busy showing off your house." That hit me harder than I expected. "Showing off, I invited you over." I cooked. I waited. No one even replied. "You don't have to throw it in our faces, Liam," she snapped. "Not everyone's had the kind of luck you've had." I blinked. "Luck? I worked for everything I have." "I'm not going to argue with you," she said, her voice rising. "But your brother's been having a hard time. Jenna's struggling too. And you flaunting your new house like some trophy. What did you expect us to feel?" I swallowed hard. "I expected you to be proud of me." There was a long silence on the other end. Then, in a voice that felt like a slap, "You've always thought you were better than us. Maybe now you finally believe it." She hung up. I just sat there on my floor staring at the blank screen. The fireplace I dreamed of as a kid flickered gently beside me. But for the first time, the house didn't feel warm. It felt like a box I'd built to isolate myself. That night, I didn't sleep much. I kept replaying the call in my head. The way she said luck like I hadn't earned a damn thing. The way she made me feel like the villain for trying. And then a few days later came the betrayal that changed everything. I got home from work and found a note slipped under my door. No name, no envelope, just a folded piece of lined paper. Inside was a short message written in the unmistakable handwriting of my 10-year-old niece, Emma, Kyle's daughter. It said, "Uncle Liam, why don't you want to see us anymore? Mommy said you're being selfish and mean. I miss you. Did I do something wrong?" I just stared at it. That was the moment something cracked in me. Not because of what Emma wrote, she's a kid, but because of what Jenna had told her. Selfish and mean. That's what they were telling her about me. I hadn't even seen her since Christmas. They were poisoning the next generation against me. I called Jenna right then, heart-pounding anger simmering under my skin. She didn't pick up, sent me to voicemail. So I texted her, "Don't drag your daughter into whatever this is. That's between us." She didn't deserve that. Her reply came 10 minutes later. She asked I told her the truth. I felt sick. Not just angry, betrayed. This wasn't about a missed dinner or a party. This was about them rewriting the story, turning me into some smug, arrogant outsider just because I dared to succeed without them. I stopped trying after that. I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't reach out. If they wanted me to be the villain, fine. Let them. But then, as if they couldn't let well enough alone, Kyle crossed a line. It was a Saturday morning. I was halfway through organizing the garage when I heard a car pull up. I peeked through the blinds and saw Kyle's truck in my driveway. I hesitated, debating whether to open the door. But before I could decide, he banged on it. Loud, sharp. I opened it just a crack. "What do you want?" He shoved past me like he owned the place. "Nice place," he muttered, looking around like he was assessing it for resale value. "Must be nice not having any responsibilities." I raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me, you don't have kids. You don't help out. You just sit up here in your shiny little house while the rest of us are drowning. I offered to have you over." You ignored me. He turned on me. Because we're sick of your pity parties. Pity, I laughed cold. I invited you to celebrate with me. You invited us to gloat, he snapped. You always have this holier-than-thou attitude. Like just because you didn't screw up like the rest of us, you're better. I was done playing nice. You're angry at me for not failing, Kyle. That's not my problem. He glared at me, jaw clenched. You think you're untouchable now, just wait. Then he stormed out. And for the first time in my life, I locked the door behind him and didn't feel guilty. But the real betrayal came 2 days later. I got a call from my mortgage lender. Hi, Mr. Jameson. We received a call from someone claiming to be your brother requesting information about your mortgage terms. Said he needed it for family emergency reasons. We didn't give him anything, but we wanted to alert you. I felt the blood drain from my face. He tried to get into my financial records. He actually tried. And that was the moment I realized something I should have seen months ago. This wasn't about bruised egos or sibling rivals. This was about control, about a family that couldn't handle me existing outside their grasp, and they weren't going to stop. For the first time since moving in, I started double locking my doors. Not because I thought Kyle would break in. I don't think he's that unhinged, but because something in me had fundamentally shifted. A door had closed. Not the physical one in my hallway, but the one I'd kept open for years. Hoping, no believing that my family would eventually come around. That they'd see me not as the overachiever, not as the quiet one, not as the convenient punching bag for their insecurities, but as someone they could be proud of. That illusion was dead now. Kyle trying to impersonate me and dig into my mortgage wasn't just shady. It was invasive. It was malicious. And it confirmed every gut feeling I'd ignored for years. I was never really one of them, not emotionally, not mentally, not in any way that mattered. I was tolerated when I stayed small, dismissed when I tried to shine. The call from the lender left me rattled. I didn't say much, just thanked them, confirmed I hadn't authorized anything, and hung up. Then I sat there on the edge of my bed, the early evening light spilling through the half-open blinds, feeling this strange, detached numbness creep over me. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was just tired. Tired of trying to be the bigger person. Tired of keeping the peace. Tired of shrinking myself to avoid being called arrogant. Tired of inviting people who never once thought to invite me. That night, I made a decision. I blocked Kyle. Then I blocked Jenna. Then I blocked Mom. Dad didn't even need blocking. He rarely used his phone, and I hadn't heard from him in months anyway. I didn't make a big announcement, no dramatic "I'm cutting you all off" message, just silence. For once, I gave them back exactly what they'd given me. The next few weeks were harder than I expected, honestly. Even though I'd made the choice, it still felt like mourning. I'd grown up with these people, shared birthdays, holidays, inside jokes that now felt like memories from someone else's life. There were moments when I caught myself wanting to send a funny meme to Jenna or ask Mom for her chili recipe. But then I'd remember the look on Kyle's face, the bite in Mom's voice, the way Jenna had weaponized her daughter's innocence just to make me feel guilty. I felt alone. Worse than alone, I felt erased. But here's the thing about rock bottom, it's solid. There's no further to fall. And after a few weeks of sitting in that hollow place, something in me started to shift. It began with small things. I repainted the spare bedroom, turned it into an office. For months, I'd told myself I'd do it once things calmed down. Well, nothing was ever calm when it came to my family. Now, with the silence hanging heavy in the air, I had the time and the headspace to do it. Then I started waking up earlier. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I'd make coffee, sit on my little patio with a hoodie pulled tight, and just watch the morning light roll in. It became my ritual, a quiet reclaiming of peace. I threw myself into work too. I'd always freelanced on the side, doing web development and digital marketing gigs here and there, but now I started treating it like a second career. I updated my portfolio, networked, took on riskier, higher-paying projects. One of those projects, an e-commerce site for a niche apparel brand, ended up going viral. Their sales skyrocketed, and the founder, a woman named Lexi, credited my design with boosting their conversions. She referred me to 3 other businesses within 2 weeks. Just like that, I was booked out for months. With the extra income, I started fixing up the house. Not because I needed to prove anything, but because I deserved it. I bought a proper couch, framed some art, built a bookshelf by hand, replaced the outdated light fixtures in the kitchen with something modern and sleek. Every improvement felt like a middle finger to the version of me who once waited for validation from people who couldn't even send a text back. Then something happened that forced me to confront just how much had changed. About 3 months after I'd cut contact, I got a letter in the mail. A real one. Not a bill, not junk mail. An actual envelope, handwritten, no return address. The handwriting was unmistakable. Mom. I stood in my kitchen holding that letter like it was radioactive. I didn't open it right away. I just stared at it, heart pounding, my thumb running along the edge of the paper. I finally opened it that night. It wasn't long, just a page. She wrote, "Liam, I don't know what's going on with you. We haven't heard from you in weeks. I know you've always been sensitive, but this feels like a lot over a few misunderstandings. Your brother is going through a hard time. Your sister misses you even if she doesn't know how to say it. I miss you too. I hope you can put whatever you're feeling behind you soon. We're family, and that should mean something. Mom." I read it 3 times. Not once did she mention what Kyle did. Not once did she apologize. Not once did she ask if I was okay. Just the usual deflection. The guilt trip dressed as concern. the passive-aggressive nudge to get back in line. I didn't reply. Instead, I took the letter, folded it neatly, and slid it into a drawer. Not out of spite, but as a reminder. A reminder that I hadn't imagined the mistreatment. That even when I stepped away in the quietest, most non-confrontational way possible, they still managed to make it about them. From there, the rebuild turned into something more powerful. I started therapy, something I'd always thought about but never followed through with. I found someone local, did a few consultations, and ended up with a therapist named Jordan, who within the first session helped me realize that I'd been parenting myself since I was a kid. That I'd spent so long trying to earn love that should have been unconditional. I didn't know how to recognize my own worth without someone else clapping for me. That hit hard. We talked about boundaries, about guilt, about the difference between loneliness and peace. And slowly, week by week, I started to feel lighter, more solid. I started journaling again too, something I hadn't done since high school. Pages filled with thoughts, questions, small victories. Like the day I hit my first $10,000 month freelancing, or the day I realized I hadn't thought about my mom's approval in over a week, or the day I caught myself smiling while walking through my living room, and felt for the first time genuinely proud. Not performative proud, not look at what I did, please validate me proud. Just proud. I also made new friends. Slowly, I reconnected with an old college buddy who'd moved back into town, met a few people through local tech meetups, even started going to a monthly board game night at a cafe near my house. It wasn't instant magic or anything, but it was real, mutual, no strings attached. One night, while hosting game night at my place, I looked around at the 5 people in my living room, all laughing, joking, sipping cider, and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Chosen. These people didn't know my family history, didn't care about the drama. They liked me, not the version of me that played peacemaker, not the one that dimmed his light to avoid making others feel small. Just me. And that more than anything was healing. But the real turning point came about 5 months after I'd gone no contact. I was sitting at my kitchen table, half asleep with coffee, when I got a text from an unknown number. It was from Jenna. "Hey, don't freak out. I'm not here to fight. Can we talk?" I stared at it. I hadn't heard her voice in half a year, not since the selfish and mean note from her daughter. My thumb hovered over the screen, debating whether to delete it. But curiosity won. Talk about what. Her reply came instantly. "It's about Kyle." And just like that, the past came knocking again. I didn't answer Jenna's text right away, not because I didn't want to know what it was about. I did. I really did. But I'd spent months clawing my way back to some version of myself that felt stable, grounded, and finally free. I was no longer the younger brother sitting quietly in the corner while the rest of the family talked over me. I was no longer the kid who internalized guilt for things he didn't do. And I was definitely no longer the man who begged for scraps of approval from people who resented his success. Still, it's about Kyle. That line stuck in my head all morning. I tried to focus on work. I couldn't. I went for a run. Didn't help. I sat in the living room with a cup of tea, staring at nothing. Why now? What does she want? The last time she spoke to me, she painted me as the villain in her daughter's eyes. Why come back now? I told myself not to respond. Told myself it wasn't worth reopening a door I'd sealed shut. But something about the way she said it, "don't freak out," made it feel serious. So that afternoon I texted back, "You've got 10 minutes. I'm not doing family therapy over text." She replied within seconds, "Can I come by, just talk?" Nothing else. I hesitated. The thought of letting her into my home again, the same home she once mocked me for inviting them to, felt like handing a wolf the keys to the sheep pen. But I wasn't the same person anymore. I had boundaries now, and I had the strength to enforce them. 1 hour, no drama, no games. You say your piece and go. She with a simple thumbs up. When she showed up, it was strange seeing her on my porch again. She looked different, tired. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, and she had bags under her eyes like she hadn't slept in days. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in right away. "You alone?" She nodded. "Yeah, just me." I stepped aside and she walked in, slowly glancing around like she was afraid of what she'd see. Like the house would mock her just by existing. We sat at the kitchen island. I stayed standing. She glanced up. "You look good. Get to the point," I said flatly. She sighed, fidgeting with the sleeve of her hoodie. "Kyle's in trouble." My arms crossed. Define trouble. He lost his job again, and, well, he's been gambling. I raised an eyebrow. She kept going. "Online stuff. He started with crypto and NFTs and then went full tilt into sports betting. It's bad, Liam. Like they're drowning. The mortgage is 3 months behind. Their car just got repossessed." I blinked. "And this is what to do with me." Jenna swallowed. "He used your name." My stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" "He applied for a line of credit using your name and social security number. Said he had access to your stuff from when you two filed taxes together years ago." I felt the blood drain from my face. She saw the look and rushed to continue. "I told him he was insane. I didn't know until yesterday. I swear." I took a slow, deliberate breath. "And what exactly did he do with it?" "Maxed it out. 10 grand. It's gone. The creditor sent something to his address, but it was under your name." I walked away from the counter, trying to breathe. $10,000. My name? My credit. I hadn't seen Kyle in months and somehow he'd still managed to reach into my life and detonate something. I turned back to her. Why are you telling me now? She looked down. Because he said he was going to try to take a loan out on your house next. That stopped me cold. What? He bragged about it, she said quietly. Said you were too busy playing house to notice anything. Said if you didn't want to share the wealth, he'd just take what he was owed. I stared at her, fury pulsing beneath my skin. What he's owed, I said through clenched teeth. She looked up at me, eyes tired. He thinks you cheated, that you scammed your way into all of this. I worked, I snapped. I saved, I sacrificed. I earned every bit of this. I know, she said. That's why I'm here. I thought you deserved to know before he did anything worse. I sat down slowly, my brain moving a mile a minute. Why tell me now, Jenna? After everything? Why not 3 months ago? Or when you let your daughter write me that note? She looked ashamed. Because I was mad. I thought you abandoned us. Mom said you were punishing us for being honest with you. I bought into it. But now I see what Kyle really is. And I'm scared. Not just for him. For Emma. For myself. I didn't respond. I was too busy thinking. 10 grand in my name. A possible attempt to forge something with my property. This wasn't just petty sibling rivalry anymore. This was identity theft, fraud, criminal charges. And now for the first time I had leverage. Real leverage. I didn't speak for a long while. Just sat there letting the storm settle. Then I stood up. Thanks for telling me, but I need you to leave now. She nodded slowly. Are you going to press charges? I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure yet. But that night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was upset, but because for the first time I had a plan for me. A slow, methodical plan. One that didn't involve screaming or confrontation or anything loud and messy. No, this was going to be quiet, clean, surgical. I pulled out every document I had. Old tax forms, bank records, credit reports. I logged into every account and changed every password. I put a freeze on my credit, filed a report for identity theft with the FTC, set up fraud alerts with all 3 credit bureaus. I made an appointment with a lawyer the next morning, someone I'd worked with before through a client gig. She knew her stuff. When I explained what happened, she leaned back and said, if we can prove this, he's toast. Good. That was the goal, but I didn't want to just nuke him from orbit. I wanted to control. So I waited. Quietly, I gathered evidence. I requested my full credit report twice, compared every detail, found the account Kyle had opened, traced it back, got the address, the date, everything. I documented it all. The lawyer helped me file a police report, not to arrest him yet, but to create an official record. Then I made one more call to my friend Lexi, the one whose business I'd helped explode. Hey, I said you still looking for investment partners? She laughed. Always. What I might be sitting on an opportunity. See, with the success I'd had freelancing, I had a decent chunk saved up, more than I'd ever admitted out loud. I'd been smart with my money, lived frugally, paid off my debts. And now I was ready to level up. Not just to grow, but to build something permanent. Lexi was in. Over the next 2 months, we laid the foundation for a small marketing firm, focused on digital strategy for niche brands. I had the capital, she had the connections, and we both had the experience. It was quiet at first. No press, no announcements, just slow, steady setup. And during that time, I didn't speak a word to my family. Not even when I heard through mutual acquaintances that Kyle was spiraling, that the creditors were calling, that his wife had moved out temporarily with the kids, that mom was so worried. I didn't flinch because I knew something they didn't. Their silence didn't make them strong. It made them predictable. And now the next move was mine. I'd waited my whole life to be heard. Now I wouldn't have to say a word. The last domino fell on a Thursday. It had been exactly 92 days since Jenna showed up at my doorstep, hands shaking, telling me Cal had stolen my identity and sunk 10 grand under my name. 92 days of quiet preparation, silent documentation. Carefully constructed legal threads I'd woven into a net strong enough to catch a man who had his whole life slipped through consequence like smoke. But now, there was nowhere left to run. By then, my company with Lexi was officially off the ground. We'd signed 3 major clients, hired 2 part-time freelancers, and set up a compact office space downtown that cost less than a decent vacation, but made us look 10 times more professional. I didn't flaunt it, didn't post about it. I just worked, focused, stayed silent. Because revenge isn't about shouting. It's about timing. When the knock came, I was sitting in that same kitchen where Jenna had warned me. I didn't even flinch. I sipped my coffee, opened the blinds, and watched as 2 uniformed officers stood at Cal's front door just across town. His house visible through a Google Maps alert I'd set to notify me the second anything unusual happened at his address. I'd reported the identity theft weeks earlier. But this wasn't a no-name case shoved to the back of a file cabinet. I'd followed it with the kind of precision that made my lawyer raise an eyebrow and say, "Most people don't gather this much before calling us." She'd laugh. I hadn't. I wasn't playing catch-up anymore. I'd filed the report with the FTC, frozen my credit, submitted sworn affidavits with timestamps, and provided copies of Cal's forged application sloppily done on an IP address traced back to his home Wi-Fi, using the same phone number he'd posted publicly on his defunct crypto consulting Facebook page, Idiot. When they cuffed him on his front lawn, his wife Maria stood at the doorway, arms crossed. She didn't cry, didn't shout, just shook her head. I later heard from Jenna that Maria had known something was wrong for months. She just didn't know it went this deep. Turns out Kyle had tried to open 2 more accounts using my information, but the fraud alert flagged it. That made the DA take interest. They weren't going to prosecute at first, too small, they said. But when I presented the full package of evidence, including a statement from my mortgage lender, and even screenshots of Jenna's confession, they reconsidered. He was arrested for identity theft, wire fraud, and attempted grand larceny. 3 felonies. Bail was set at $50,000. He didn't have it. That part wasn't even the satisfying one. What came next was a week after the arrest. I met with Maria. She'd called me out of the blue asking to talk. We met at a coffee shop near her workplace. She looked exhausted but composed. Her hair tied up, a folder tucked under her arm. "I'm divorcing him," she said before I even sat down. "I'm not here to talk you out of it," I replied. She gave a tired smile. "Didn't think you would. I just needed to give you something." She slid the folder across the table. Inside were copies of text messages, screenshots of Kyle bragging about his plans, mocking me, even laughing with some friend about how he could probably squeeze 20 grand out of my idiot brother before he notices. I didn't flinch. I just nodded. "Thank you," I said. "You're not the only one he screwed over," she said. "But you're the only one who did something about it." She stood up to leave. Before she walked away, she turned back and said, "Emma still talks about you, you know. She's got that little drawing you gave her for her birthday framed by her bed." That almost broke me, but I held it together. Just nodded again. "She's a good kid." Maria hesitated, then said, "If you ever want to see her again, you'd be welcome. I think she needs more people like you." That night, I didn't feel joy, not exactly. It wasn't that kind of revenge, but I felt clarity and peace. The fallout spread slowly. Jenna reached out again, this time apologizing. A real one. No excuses. She told me she was in therapy trying to untangle the warped family dynamics we all grew up in. I didn't say much back, just that I wished her the best. I meant it. I wasn't interested in being her emotional support animal, but I wasn't out for blood either. Mom, on the other hand, stayed silent for weeks. Then one Sunday morning, she emailed me. Not a call, not a text, an email. "Liam, I don't know what to say anymore. I feel like I don't know you. I never thought it would come to this, our family broken apart. But maybe it was already broken, and we just didn't want to see it. I hope you're happy. I hope this gave you whatever it is you needed. I still love you even if I don't understand you." Mom. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of her role, just sadness and a hint of passive blame. I didn't reply because I was finally done playing translator for people who refused to listen. A few weeks later, Carl took a plea deal. He avoided jail, barely got probation, community service, a massive fine, and a permanent criminal record. He'd never be able to open a financial account without scrutiny again. His credit was ruined, his marriage over, and his job prospects dismal. I didn't rejoice, but I did feel vindicated. I let the lawyer handle the rest. We recovered some of the stolen money through restitution. Not all, but enough. The credit marks were wiped. My reports cleared. My name protected. And as for me, I kept building. My company grew faster than I expected. Lexi and I brought on 2 more clients, hired a virtual assistant, and moved into a slightly bigger office. My house, my home, no longer felt like a battleground. It was mine again. Every room held peace, not tension. I got a new couch, real artwork, even started hosting those board game nights again. And just once I let Emma come over. Jenna brought her by on a Saturday afternoon, stayed outside while I gave Emma a tour. She was so excited she kept pointing at everything. "Is this your kitchen? Is that your backyard? Did you paint that?" At the end of the visit, she hugged me and whispered, "You're like a grown-up superhero." I laughed. "Why?" "Because you stopped the bad guy." I didn't have the heart to correct her. After she left, I stood on the porch for a long time, watching the sun dip behind the rooftops. For the first time in a long time, I felt complete. Not because I won, not because I crushed anyone, but because I finally stopped shrinking to make others comfortable. Because I stopped waiting for love from people who only knew how to compete. Because I learned that sometimes peace isn't given, it's taken. And the most powerful thing I ever did was finally say, no more. That was the last chapter, and the house still standing. So am I.